What is this? Dating stories? Yeah. Okay. Hmm. Man, I have really interesting interactions with people. Um, a lot of them probably have no idea that I make any content or do any writing or anything of the sort. Um, but I think I just want to make this space, this video, just uh, I want to talk about real interactions and things that have actually happened to me, because uh, I think it really is going to display like the complexity of you know uh, aiming for intimate relationships and so on. You know what occurs here, because there is no method, right? There is no tried and true method. But okay, so let's just break the ice with um I actually told Cadell this story. This is like my favorite story because I think it's just really funny because the girl never bothered to ask my name. Uh, I went to this New Year's party. This was not the recent New Year's, but I think this was like New Year's of roughly around 2 years ago. And I met this girl at the party there, and she was asking everybody around her what's their astrological sign, right? Um, and she looked at me and she said, "What's your sign?" And I said my sign, right? And then she goes, "Oh, you guys are the worst." uh, and that was the end of all interaction, right? That was just the end of all interaction. The That was it. Uh, and to add humor to the rest of the story, I remember uh, she was like doing some type of like TikTok video at the party for some reason, and she was doing it near the bar there. It was like a little outside bar, and I was just trying to pour myself a drink, and I guess she like messed up her like dance move or something, and she got really frustrated. She just goes, "Ah, it's this sign's energy that's near me that's ruining my vibes." And I'm just like, "Oh man, I'm just trying to pour myself a drink, you know? I'm just trying to pour myself a drink and, have fun." And yet I'm like ruining this woman's day by just not even talking to her, just being around her, just ruining her day apparently. Um, so that's one side. Um, Another thing that I don't know if I find it annoying or if I find it bizarre. I'm not sure if I find it bizarre. I think I'm probably leaning towards annoying. And I will state my reasons why I find it annoying. So there have been numerous interactions that I've had with women where uh, in a I don't really have the right words to say it. So where they sexualize my intelligence, right? For some reason, right? They sexualize my intelligence. right? And it's always humorous to me in the beginning because I'm like, I don't really see myself as in that type of way. I don't really define myself or stuff myself in that category of like, oh, I'm a intellectual and I like to talk about intellectual things. I mean, I think the moment you start putting yourself in that category, then you're like, falling into those ego traps. Um, but one thing I won't deny, it's like, yes, I like talking about philosophical things. I like talking about, you know, I would traditionally say deep things, deep aspects of life. But, something a friend of mine, Davoud, would say, when we critique shallowness, um, shallowness always still has something to offer. And I think implicitly I would add more and say that actually shallowness always, it's funny. A funny thing, I'm going on kind of a tangent about shallowness, but the funny thing about shallowness is that um, it always coincides with a certain depth. Um, it's just people are upset about, oh, this conversation is not deep enough. This conversation doesn't stimulate me intellectually, and so on. I've encountered women like that, and so when they run into me, they sexualize that aspect of myself, right? But why I find it annoying? Why do I find it annoying? Okay, I find it annoying because if I embrace any other aspect of myself, any like just to give an example, because I'm a human being. If I embrace like maybe a sexual side of myself, right? Instantly, they become repulsed. They become repulsed by me, right? Um, because for them, I am playing solely their intellectual, um, erotic uh, stimulator. I am solely playing that role. But if I were to embrace another aspect of myself, right? For them, all of a sudden, I go from. It's actually really funny how it happens. You go from them admiring you for some type of intellectual activity that you do, and then all of a sudden you drop down to horny bastard. But that's what really, and that's what's annoying to me because it really reduces the human being to. It seems like when we have interactions with people, this is what's frustrating for me. Just in general, it's frustrating for me um, because we are so reductive to each other, you know, and we always get so accustomed to this either orness when we have interactions with each other. It's like for these women that I have interacted with, it's like, oh, well, you can't be both. You can't be intellectual and have horniness at the same time. Like you can't. They're like, for them, it's just incompatible. They will break down. They'll have a breakdown because it just doesn't make any sense. Um, and so it's either you be this or that. But if you're that, then I don't want anything to do with you. Um, and so on. So it's almost like we don't even enjoy, or we don't know how to enjoy the complexity of a human relationship, the complexity of a human interaction, you know. Um, and and this is what I really have problems with, is that we don't enjoy the complexity of it. We don't know how to enjoy the complexity of human relationship. um, which I believe the talk that me and Michelle had, it did bring to light why, because we instantly begin with some type of transaction as such. Um, but I can already hear counter arguments for such a thing. But those counter arguments would only enrich the complexity of what I am already talking about. Uh, when people talk about, well, if they don't like that side of you, maybe, uh, maybe they're correct. Maybe you shouldn't express it as such, right? So there's always examples that we can give. When we talk about these aspects of myself or aspects of ourselves, when we interact with another human being, there's always this complex question, right? Which side do I express? Um, but most of the time, we're not actively searching or asking the question, which side do I express? Right? It doesn't. And I think uh, Davood did a video about this, about friendship, which, like, most of the time, we're not really thinking about. I forgot how he said it, but it was along the lines of, like, you don't really think about friendship in such a way when until you make the friendship like the object, right? You don't really think about it, right? And this is why he says, like, friendship is more like a place. Um, yeah, a place. So, and I think relationships and just general, I believe, probably follow along the similar lines, that these expressions of ourselves, uh, we express them to everyone in a different way. But my typical problem, my annoyance, my frustration is that sometimes within the common interaction that you have with daily people, sometimes there is a rupture in the interaction, meaning that suddenly you are expressing a side of yourself that that person never encountered before. And this is what I would call like a rupture, because I mean, it is really a rupture because, one, we don't know how that person is going to react. We don't know how that person is going to behave. I mean, there is almost like a real test of metaphorical death that is encountered in this rupture. You know, uh, Sometimes there are aspects of ourselves that are uh, completely asides, just things that would just end it, right? Just end the interaction, end the relationship, uh, end it, or just end it. And I just, there isn't a clear answer, in my opinion. There isn't a clear answer about whether or not you shouldn't or should express these um, sides of yourself. And instantly, I start thinking about Freud, ironically enough, because you know, I think Freud, he at least embraced the idea that with his patients, um, that they needed to express uh, these sides of themselves. Obviously, the sides that Freud had theorized were the sexual, the sort of the banned sexual desires, the shameful, guilty sexual desires. And it's funny because I myself will experience those banned and very censored aspects with my own interactions with people, right? It will be as such. Um, of course, there is always a little bit of delicacy there because, you know, live in, we try to live in a moral society, and Freud realized this as well. So I believe I remember, I don't know what paper I read from Freud, but I remember him expressing that if if you can't act it out, because morally it would be a problem in society, then the least that we can do is express it in some kind of fashion, you know. And oftentimes, I think for Freud, this is when, you know, the listening cure. Actually, I said the listening cure. That is definitely from uh, Adam Phillips, but you know, this is the aspects of the talking cure and such. Uh, and so, you know, it's one of those things that when I reflect about, you know, well, actually, I'll be honest, most of the times when I have an interaction with another human being, I'm not thinking about which side should I express myself. It just seems actually a very more natural occurrence is that the aspects of myself kind of reveal themselves along the way, um, contingent on the moment, contingent on just the interaction. Um, Now, sometimes you, let me put it this way, sometimes you're already caught in an aspect of yourself, and then it uh, transforms all the other interactions. And I think to give a really good example of this, really great example of this, is you know, one. So let's say when you're drunk, right? You're already caught in a state, and then now all your interactions will be sort of altered. There'll be sort of an alteration in all of your interactions because you are in a state of drunkenness. Um, the same thing can be said about sexuality. If you are in a state of, I don't know, if you're horny, right? Then all your interactions will be sort of altered, right? It brings about an alteration of interactions. Now, funny enough, there's people that will actually enjoy it. It's always 50-50. There's some people that don't enjoy your drunken state. There's people that won't enjoy your sexual state when you're caught in that way. Um, but then, but you know what's interesting? The people that I really love, actually, the people that I really admire, are the people that it doesn't matter for them. It doesn't almost matter what state you're in. They just really enjoy. Um, you know, it's like they have this sort of laughter or a sort of childlike enjoyment of like, hey, I've never seen this side of you and I'm liking it, you know, or they just they're so you know, I feel like those people are very rare to come by, actually, because there's always an aspect of ourselves that we don't like. There's always an aspect of ourselves that other people don't like. Sometimes they coincide hand in hand. Um, you know, I think maybe addiction would be a good example where it's like you hate your addiction, but people also don't like your addiction. This can go hand in hand, and this is a side of yourself that you don't enjoy, but other people don't enjoy either. Um, so I think they can coincide, but I feel like most cases actually we are battling two aspects where it's like there's a side of myself I don't enjoy, but there's a side that people don't enjoy. There's a side of myself that people don't enjoy from me. Um, and the question that I have to, the question that rises from this is that, well, what do we do? What do we do with this? Do I shut down? Do I close this side of myself because people don't like it? Do I? What is the answer? Um, I think one clear problem is that if I do close a side of myself, it can lead, at least in psychoanalysis, this can lead to repression as such. And if I repress this side, if I don't acknowledge this side, um, the challenge that might occur is that something else might arise uh, out of this repression that could be worse and more burdensome. But again, this is a very complex issue because there's always those cases of abuse and so on that obviously we would agree. I mean, I would like to think we would agree that this is not a good, uh, maybe a good side to have. However, it is a side that needs to be encountered, meaning that it needs to be sorted out, not acted on, but sorted out. Uh, so I think when we use this example of sorting out and acting upon, there is a question now that now has led through my thinking of this through, is that maybe there are parts of ourselves that crave expression. They crave to be acknowledged, despite whatever individuals may think. But then there are aspects of ourselves that crave to be sorted out. Now, the question that I will leave everyone with is, which is which? And I am expressing a certain side of myself, which is which? Is this the side that solely craves its expression? Or is this the side that craves its sorting out, that it's already um, malformed, it's disfigured, that I need to uh, purify it in some way to discover what it really is? Um, so I think this really adds to the complexity of what I mean when we talk about the sides of ourselves, the sides of each other. Um, but I am starting to believe that there are aspects of ourselves, because psychoanalysis, I think, really capitalizes on this fact. Like, there are sides of ourselves that simply needed expression. And those expressions can become the cure. But then there's the sides of ourselves that need to be sorted out. We need to work through it, to be able to express what it is. And I think the case of abusive behavior is exactly that. It's those expressions that need to be sorted out, because it's a malformed, it's a disfigured expression of a person. And it's one of those questions of just like, what are you really trying to express here? Um, and I think I will leave it at that, because it's getting very dark in my room. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. So, so this, I guess, ended up being a more of a tangent, more of a just me thinking through my interactions with people, expressing the sides of myself, and so on. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Um, Again, if you guys have any questions or you want to share your personal stories, I'm glad to hear it, honestly. Really glad to hear it. All right. Take care, guys.